One man is being victimized by our own government. One man whom they fear, yet who millions love. One man who is willing to take the poison arrows of lawfare. One man whose voice has been taken away by a corrupt judge operating in a corrupt system. One man who has been ridiculed and insulted. One man who refused to back down. One man who refused to back down. One man who refused to back down. One man who stands between us and them. One man that wants to see America protected again. One man who wants to see America prosper again. One man who understands that a man is a man and a woman is a woman. One man who understands and protects the blessing of life. One man who wants to restore American exceptionalism. One man who once again wants to make America that shining city on a hill for all to see. A place where all the people of the world glowingly set their eyes upon. America. One man who unashamedly wants to make America great again. That one man is Donald Trump.
This is Fanfare with Barry Cunningham.
The Trump White House must facilitate the return of this man who was, by the administration's own admission, mistakenly deported to El Salvador. What is happening now and what happens next?
Nicole, only the President of the United States is pretending to fight over the word facilitate. No one else in America, importantly, including the Supreme Court of the United States, believes that that's an issue. And it's not an issue. Nicole, you and I were together almost 1 month ago to the day, and on your show, I said that Donald Trump had declared war on the federal judiciary, on the rule of law, and on the nation's legal profession. We talked at that time about the fact that in the previous week or two, Donald Trump had called for the impeachment of federal judges and all federal judges who ruled against him in any case. And that point was made loud and clear by Elon Musk. At that point, a month ago, I said to you that we were locked in a constitutional crisis at that moment, because the President of the United States of America, was at war with the Constitution and the rule of law. So all of us could have predicted that this day would come. The President has been taunting the federal judiciary and even the Supreme Court of the United States for several months now.
I am such an institutionalist, and I thought this day would never come. But I want to make sure people understand we are here. everyone's, at least I have tried to say, we're not yet in that constitutional crisis. That is what is going on right now. The district court is valiantly trying to basically determine that white is white and black is black and just get answers from the administration. And they're hiding behind the sort of thinnest veneer of saying, well, now that this person's out of the country, we can't possibly do anything. We can't even tell you that we asked to have him be returned. It is a complete flouting of the district court, court of appeals, and now Supreme Court orders. It is truly remarkable. And as I've said over and over again, it is the complicity is what makes this so different than Trump 1.0, that you don't have the White House counsel, you don't have the Attorney General, you don't have anyone there to say, this is not legal, it is not constitutional, it is not how you're supposed to behave in the United States of America. I mean, this really is the Rubicon that I was hoping we would never ever get to, but that Judge Ludig correctly said this was going to happen, and it has. This is where we are. It is now going to be up to the Supreme Court to actually show some steel and backbone to find that this is in violation of their order and take as drastic steps as they can, and ideally, again, unanimously about what is happening here, or we really won't have a country left.
No, what I think he meant to say is we won't have a Democrat Party left. I told you in the show this afternoon that after what the judges did, after what Bukele did, and after what Trump and how they laid waste to the Democrats and the media in the prior show during his Oval Office meeting, that they were going to be freaking out all over the place. And indeed, that's exactly what they're doing. And the reason being, because they now know and they understand that it's likely the Democrats have been boxed into a corner and they can't get out. They realize at this point that their future is tied to, theft, rigging. And so now what happens? Well, Kristi Noem putting in Real ID, Tom Noman and Kristi Noem shutting the border down. Remember, he said 98%. It's closed. The judges not giving them what they want. Yeah, this is a very, very, very big constitutional crisis for the Democrats, that is, because they're watching everything that they did, from stealing money to funneling money into wars, to taking shots at presidents, to doing all kinds of color revolutions. It's all crumbling down in front of them, and they absolutely have nothing that they can do legally. Who knows what the future holds? Who knows if they're going to activate all these people to go rioting again? But I don't know how, because they can't funnel money to them. And if they can't funnel money to them, I don't think the orcs are going to work. Plus, now they're seeing they're going to jail. And we're not talking about, some little jail. Pam Bondi's about to put the guy who is burning Tesla dealerships into jail for 40 years. So right now you're seeing a scared animal. And as you know, scared animals can be quite dangerous. So that's the other part at this point that I hope the Trump administration has planned on. I hope when they were gaming everything out that this is something they understood what the next strategy will be for these people. Because they got nothing else. And I've told you many, many, many times that I'm not going to be a mind reader as to what the court meant, but I told you, he wasn't going to listen to these district court judges. He doesn't feel they have the authority, and now they're all waking up and realize there's nobody we can call. We can't call the United States Marshals. Nope. We can't call the Department of Justice. Sorry. We can't call the sheriffs and the police and all. Nope. You're done. you're going to have to either win the next election, good luck, you don't have anybody running, or you're going to have to find a way, I don't know, to support America. You see, none of this would be happening. None of this would be even a problem if the Democrats, although they may have a different strategy, that strategy was about making America better. You know, there used to be a time when Democrats disagreed with Republicans, but they weren't anti-American. There used to be a time in America where Democrats didn't agree with Republicans, but they weren't actively rooting for its demise. And we're seeing people like AOC and Jasmine Crockett and all these nuts out there who are openly looking and advocating for America to crumble. That's not cool whatsoever. And you got, as my intro says, we got this one man who's like, we've had it. That's it. We're done. We're not going to play these silly games. You guys want to go do your protest and have your little blue baby removal bus out there and try to do this and do that. Go ahead. We're going to try and fix America. And so now you've had Ukrainian flags in your bio. Go ahead and put, I don't know, Chinese flags in your bio. Let us know where you stand. Because you never have American flags, so we know you're not on our side. Never do they have American flags. Not ever. They'll put somebody up there. Ukraine, China. They'll probably come up with a flag for this guy who's in El Salvador. Just let that sink in. You've got politicians in America that are advocating for the release of a terrorist. That's it. That should tell you everything you need to know. Rachel Marin's killer got convicted today. Don't see them really hailing that. Why wouldn't they be out there going, wow, that's fantastic? On the other hand, the two young guys that got in a fight and they let that guy out today on like $250,000 bond, and he just walked out of court. Judge said, just let him go. It is an upside down party. And I don't know how they fix it at this point because they are completely upside down. So, as a little refresher, here's what happened earlier.
Return the man who your administration says was mistakenly deported. The man who was mistakenly deported to El Salvador?
Well, let me ask Pam, would you answer that question?
Sure, President. First and foremost, he was illegally in our country. He had been illegally in our country. And in 2019, two courts, an immigration court and an appellate immigration court, ruled that he was a member of MS-13 and he was illegally in our country. Right now, it was additional paperwork that needed to be done. That's up to El Salvador if they want to return him. That's not up to us. The Supreme Court ruled, President, that if, as El Salvador wants to return him, this is international matters, foreign affairs, if they wanted to return him, we would facilitate it, meaning provide a plane. So will you return him?
And you are doing a great job. Thank you. Wait a minute. Can you just also respond to that question? Because, it's asked by CNN, and they always ask it with a slant because they're totally slanted because they don't know what's happening. That's why nobody's watching them. But would you answer that question also, please?
Yes, gladly. So, as Pam mentioned, there's an illegal alien from El Salvador. So, with respect to you, he's a citizen of El Salvador. So it's very arrogant even for American media to suggest that we would even tell El Salvador how to handle their own citizens as a starting point. As two immigration courts found that he was a member of MS-13. When President Trump declared MS-13 to be a foreign terrorist organization, that meant that he was no longer eligible under federal law, which I'm sure you know, you're very familiar with the INA, that he was no longer eligible for any form of immigration relief in the United States. So he had a deportation order that was valid, which meant that under our law, he's not even allowed to be present in the United States and had to be returned because of the foreign terrorist designation. This issue was then, by a district court judge, completely inverted, and a district court judge tried to tell the administration that they had to kidnap a citizen of El Salvador and fly him back here. That issue was raised to the Supreme Court, and the Supreme Court said the district court order was unlawful, and its main components were reversed 9-0 unanimously, stating stating clearly that neither Secretary of State nor the President could be compelled by anybody to forcibly retrieve a citizen of El Salvador from El Salvador, who again is a member of MS-13, which, as I'm sure you understand, rapes little girls, murders women, murders children, is engaged in the most barbaric activities in the world, and I can promise you, if he was your neighbor, you would move right away.
So you don't plan to ask for it to get him back?
And what was the ruling in the Supreme Court, Steve? Was it 9-0?
Yes, it was a 9-0
in our favor.
In our favor, against the district court ruling, saying that no district court has the power to compel the foreign policy function of the United States. As Pam said, the ruling solely stated that if this individual, at El Salvador's sole discretion, was sent back to our country, that we could deport him a second time. No version of this legally ends up with him ever living here because he is a citizen of El Salvador. That is the president of El Salvador. Your questions about it, per the court, can only be directed to him.
I asked can President Bukele weigh in on this? Do you plan to return him?
No, I can't. Both of you are suggesting that I smuggle a terrorist into the United States, right? How can I return him to the United States? Like I smuggle him into the United States, or whether I do it first, I'm not going to do it. It's like, the question is preposterous. How can I smuggle a terrorist into the United States? I don't have the power to return him to the United States.
But you can release him inside El Salvador.
Yeah, but I'm not releasing, we're not very fond of releasing terrorists into our country. We just turned the murder capital of the world into the safest country of the Western Hemisphere, and you want us to go back into the releasing criminals so we can go back to being the murder capital of the world? No, that's not going to happen.
Well, they'd love to have a criminal, released into
I mean, there's a fascination.
They would love it.
Yeah.
They're sick. These are sick people. Mark, do you have something to say about
Yeah, Stephen Island, I don't understand what the confusion is. This individual is a citizen of El Salvador. He was illegally in the United States and was returned to his country. That's where you deport people, back to their country of origin. Except for Venezuela, that wasn't refusing to take people back to places like that. I can tell you this, Mr. President. No, the foreign policy of the United States is conducted by the President of the United States, not by a court. And no court in the United States has a right to conduct the foreign policy of the United States. It's that simple. End of story.
I love how he said, end of discussion. There's nothing left to discuss. You're done. That didn't stop the media. Oh no. All that did was just, stir up the ashes so that they could continue screaming and crying and bemoaning because they have to advocate for this terrorist to come back to America. In fact, I saw somebody who printed something like, we need to bring him home. Like, home? What do you mean home? This dude doesn't have a home anymore. He's sitting in jail in El Salvador. For some reason, it's not sinking in. These people think that somehow they're what? They're whining, crying, bitching, moaning, all of it. They think that's going to matter, not to Trump. Because no longer does Trump have any jurisdiction over this. It's El Salvador. And so I cannot even fathom. And I want you to think about something. You're an American journalist. We'll use that word lightly. You're an American journalist in the White House, in the Oval Office. You're asking President Trump a question. And then you do something as stupid as what Caitlin Collins did and try to challenge the president of another country. And I thought to myself, this woman really doesn't look in a mirror much. Who the hell do you think you are, Caitlin? So you're going to release him back or what? First of all, my name is President. President. All right? You need to address me. He didn't say that, but he needed to. Or somebody should have said, hold up, Caitlin. That's a president of another country you're talking to. Have some damn respect up in here. And now, to answer your question, you can screw off. No, I'm not releasing him. And then someone else had the insanity. Hold on a second. Microphone's on. And the other person had the insanity to say, well, you're going to release him in your country? And he looks at him matter-of-factly and goes, I'm not in the habit of releasing terrorists into my country, you idiots. They have no respect, They don't care about the rule of law. And when they don't get their way, you're seeing what's going to happen, because we've seen it before. We've seen this movie, We've seen it often. They're going to pound their feet, stop their feet, maybe burn some stuff up, maybe try to activate the orcs, because they can't imagine what's happening here. And it's funny, I'm going to lead you through something tonight. And I want you to understand, I'm beginning to see the end game. I'm beginning to see clearly what I think President Trump and his team are doing. And I'm pretty sure at this point, the Democrats are now seeing it as well. And the Democrats have been caught with their pants down. They don't have anybody driving the boat, and they don't know what to do. Norm Eisen with all his lawsuits and Mark Elias with all his lawsuits don't matter. They've been getting smacked down once they've gotten to the appellate courts. The district courts, Trump has said, you don't have any authority to even talk about it. I'm not even paying any attention. Shove off. Media, people realize now you're feckless. And so all they have, you never hear Ukraine in the news anymore. All they're doing is talking about this guy, which has got to have most Americans sitting back going, why are you guys so incensed about a gang member? What is it exactly that the news at this point has gone 24/7 into, oh my God, this guy's been, deported? You're exposing yourself. If I were the news, if I was a producer at one of these networks, I'd be like, let's back off. Maybe we shouldn't be pounding this. Nobody cares. We had Mark Mitchell on earlier from Rasmussen. This is a 70-30, 80-20 issue, meaning 70% to 80% of the people in America deport these people. They don't belong here. They act like this guy never committed a crime because they do not understand just being here. Never mind anything else you've done. Just being here when you're not supposed to is a crime. Unfortunately, there are people at CNN who don't think it's a crime. It is a crime. Not civil. It is a crime for you to enter this country without the proper way. But they don't want to hear that. They don't want to talk about it. And they think we're crazy for wanting to enforce borders. And the reason why they feel it, well, I'm going to show you why they're freaking out. But here's some more freak out.
What you saw was a hot potato being passed in the Oval Office, because on the one hand, you have the Attorney General before this meeting saying, well, we could send a plane down to get this Maryland man, and then you have Stephen Miller saying, well, and also the Secretary of State.
See what she just did there? How quickly they like to slide in the lie? This Maryland man. Excuse me, Dana. He's not from here. I'm not a Chicago guy. I'm not a El Salvador guy. I'm not an Italy guy. He's not an American guy. He's not a Maryland man. And everything that they do is meant to just obfuscate and basically do some sort of gaslighting into the people who are watching it. It works, because you can see them all screaming on X, oh, it's a Maryland man. No. He's not from here. But she just went right into it.
Saying, why would we do that? He's not from here. He's from El Salvador. And then, of course, as you mentioned, the Salvadoran leader saying something completely different. And this notion that, as you kind of alluded to, Priscilla, that these two leaders can't just sit down and work it out. They obviously can't. They don't want to.
Right. What's there to work out? They think that this is some sort of negotiation. They want Trump to negotiate. Why are we negotiating? The guy's a gang member. We don't want him here. Works for me. He's in El Salvador, in a jail. What they should be able to work it out. What do we want to work out? That's what. Maybe I'm different. Maybe I'm wrong. And I'm thinking to myself as I'm watching this tape today, like, work out? What am I negotiating? If you're asking me as a president to work something out, hey, can you give him back to me? Why? I don't know, Dana Bash wants me to have him back. Jake Tapper, some people on MSNBC, they asked me to ask you, but you don't want him back. No, we don't want him. So what are we negotiating? What's there to work out, Dana?
Yeah. So, I think that's the key point is, look, El Salvador is essentially a contractor of the United States. They are taking money to put up a prison. In principle, I actually have no real problem with that. The problem with it for them is that if it's an American facility, even by proxy, it is open to the jurisdiction of American courts. And
wow, these people have lost the plot completely. Hey, it's the American courts should run this. It's in a different country with it. Well, that's because they don't believe in borders. See, that's it. That's what they really mean. They don't believe in any borders. So we should be able to waltz in there and knock on the door and say, hey, can you bring out the bad guy that was hanging out in Maryland? We're going to take him back home. Not realizing there's a border. There's two. You're crossing ours into theirs. And they don't recognize borders, so this is no big deal. We should be able to do, the Supreme Court of the United States should be able to tell a sovereign country what to do. Well, if that's the case, why aren't we telling Zelensky? Because essentially, we paid for that country, didn't we? I'm pretty sure we've paid Zelensky a whole lot more than we have paid El Salvador. So by that same ideology, we should be able to tell, the Supreme Court should say, hey, Zelensky, stop it. You're done. Okay, just drop the weapons, secede, come back here, and, we'll work something out. That's what you're saying, right? But they're not saying that over there. No, we definitely paid for Ukraine. We paid for Ukraine big time. But not a single one of these people, wants to tell our Supreme Court to tell Zelensky what to do, who won't even have elections, but you want to tell El Salvador's president what to do. You guys see what's wrong here? You see how they're completely lost? Wow.
That's the real reason why they don't want to return this guy. I think they don't care about the political headache of one man. The problem is if they concede the point that they can ask for him to be sent back, and they send him back, that means they can ask for all of them to be sent back.
Maria, you just got...
They act like this is like childhood kids. They're sitting around and they're playing and they're asking, well, you got a 2? No, go fish. Okay, what? What are we negotiating? Why do we want him back? The dude already had 2 different orders to get out. I'm going to tell you what the problem is. The problem is they're lying to their people, and they're completely ignoring the fact that this guy already had a deportation order in place 2 times. Notice, until today, most people didn't know what this guy had done. It was Bukele, whatever it, President El Salvador, I suck with pronunciations, I'm sorry, who told the press, oh, he did all this, he did this, he shot 6 people, and then he shot a cop. And I'm thinking most of America didn't know that until the president of El Salvador dropped it on him. Did you know he shot a cop? And he's not from here. Oh, we got to bring him home. Wait. He shot a cop. He was bragging about it in El Salvador. Nobody in the media discusses what this fine young man from Maryland has done.
Back from there, and one of the things that happened today in the Oval Office is the president suggested they'd like to send as many people as possible there, maybe expanding the complex that is that notorious prison. Tell us what you saw when you went.
Well, first of all, Chris, you cannot get into Secot, which is that notorious prison, unless you are given permission by the president.
No, there's another way to get in. There's most assuredly another way to get in. Okay, so if you commit a crime, you're going to have to do the time in El Salvador. Or if you cross the border here, you can get a free ticket. So, she's lying.
So it's not like here where you make a request to the Department of Corrections and the commissioner, superintendent. No. You get in because President Nayib Bukele says you can get in.
Let me explain the filter you see over the image here. Because the fine people that run this operation don't think you're smart enough and that you're adult enough to handle seeing people in prison. They get upset because you show these people being handled and managed in a prison. And they've asked me, please don't show those kind of images, because some people might get hurt all up in their fee-fees. So I have to put the gauze thingy over the images when it might hurt fee-fees of certain people to see people in a real life prison. That's where we are. That's how bad it is for liberals. That their feelings might get hurt seeing a prison being managed. To the point where, don't show it, man. It's awful. Don't show it, please, don't. Oh, God. This is just a guy from Maryland, and he's over there. You can't show it. We're going to tell on you. Scout's honor. Seriously.
Which is crazy, right? It also, for the journalists who do get in, it means that you're being used as a kind of prop. What's important to know is that Bukele does call himself a dictator, and for the last several years, protests against Bukele in El Salvador have been non-existent. But now that this is happening, that these people are being removed from the United States and placed in Secot in El Salvador, you have actually seen protests against Bukele.
You see what their end game is here? She's telling you, we didn't get any protests before, but now we're getting our way, and so we're going to stomp our feet and cry in the street. We need to whine. Whining and screaming and complaining and bitching and all that, that's how we feed. It makes us feel good. It makes us feel good to complain about people in the shadows, so don't show people in jail, but we're going to go march through the street. That's okay. That's what they want.
Happening in San Salvador. So the facade is starting to crack, and it's unclear what the end game is in terms of how Bukele is going to come out of this. But it should frighten every single person who's watching this. One, the racism is outright. It's because
Oh, never fails. You sit there and count, and you're like, okay, let's go ahead and get the checkbox here and checklist. And let's see, Nazi, fascist. I'm going to put $10 on racist, and give me another $10 on, the Nazi fascist guy. Oop, I hit racist. It never fails. That's all these people have. It has been such an egregious party. All they have is grievances. They bring all these people on these panels, and I think to myself, all the panels that I'm forced to watch so I could bring you guys the news, and I'm thinking, what do you have in store for America? What's good? You got anything for us? Oh no, you're going to spend another hour bitching. That's what you got to do. You got to cry some more, whine some more. Can you slide in some good stuff with America? Are you going to, maybe help our taxes? Maybe stop trafficking and drug and nothing? Nothing. 24/7 grievance. That's all you got, right? Okay. Racism.
As this gentleman is Salvadoran, that they're like, we have nothing to do with him. It's just outright like, we don't need another Latino. We don't need to return him to this country. But two, for any American citizen who has family behind bars, this needs to be concerning to you, because the president is saying, we will soon be taking you from the United States to Secot. And by the way, there is martial law in El Salvador, which means there is no due process, Chris. There is no one visiting anyone.
So if you've got a relative in America who's in prison, who's already gone through the court system, been convicted and sentenced, you should be worried that President Trump may, farm out some sentencing down there. In a prison that's used to housing hardcore criminals. You should be worried about that. Nobody I know is worried about that. who is this audience that you're talking to? I don't have any hardcore terrorists, women abusing, baby selling. I don't know people like that. And here's another thing. If I did, if I knew somebody who was doing any of that stuff, take them. I don't care. I wash my hands. Bye. You do something like that, yeah, you need to go.
In any prison in El Salvador.
We keep using the word notorious, but what is, again, I know you weren't able to get in, but what do we know about the Salvadoran prison complex?
I mean, the whole idea, the images that, by the way, President Nayib Bukele from El Salvador, he's an expert, he's a marketer. That's why you're seeing these videos that are being made within minutes of people being transported out of the United States. The conditions are, it's hard for us to know because we don't have access, but the interviews that I did with women who serve time, you're starving, you're hungry, lights are on 24 hours a day, you have no protection from the guards or other prisoners, the dehumanization that we are all a witness to. And right, we are being told that the reason why they should be dehumanized is because they are horrible criminals. But we know because of data that actually the majority of the people who were frankly taken from the United States without any due process, they were not deported. Deported means you have seen a judge. These people were just simply taken, put on a plane, and moved.
Completely omits the fact that this guy has already been sentenced, per se. Twice. His first sentence and then his appellate sentence. They don't even mention it. It was just this poor guy from Maryland was scooped up off the street and sent first class to El Salvador. Nope, didn't happen that way. Host on MSNBC doesn't even question her.
They have no due process whatsoever, no access to visitors, no access to lawyers. And so everybody has to ask themselves, is this what we want for American citizens? Is this what we want for people who came to this country looking for refuge? And it's a question.
Oh, I love that conflation. Oh, y'all, I'm telling you, these are something. I don't know if any of you guys ever follow Scott Adams, and he talks about persuasion and how you use persuasion when you talk to get what you want. These people are masters of persuasion. And if you don't stop and hear it right there, oh, wait a minute. Oh, she's trying something there again. She's conflating that, you're American people. It's just going to happen to you. And you come here looking for a better life. I'm telling you what, sticking up a 7-Eleven isn't a better life. Doing stuff to women and children, nah, that's not a better life. Clocking on a street and selling drugs, yeah, it's not a better life. That's a criminal activity. Wherever I come from, I'm pretty sure where you come from, that's not seeking a better life. That's joining, a questionable activity, a criminal activity. It's not like he went to job 5-6 days a week and was welding. He wasn't cleaning up a school, wasn't a janitor. Wasn't looking at a better wife. Wasn't working at Krispy Kreme on the third shift making fluffy donuts. No, he was selling drugs and doing illicit stuff. But she made it seem like he just came across the border, snuck across the border, crime number one. And then he began, his life of not really important crimes. So he sold some drugs here or there, no big deal. And if he, happened to do something to a woman, that kind of stuff happens. It's the birds and the bees. And then if he sold a kid or two, he didn't really make that much money on him. These people are serious. I mean, these people just looked in a camera and said he came here for a better life. Well, he's got it now. He's got free. He's got free bedding. He's got free clothing. He's got free food. He's got free air conditioning. He's got a much better life. Doesn't even have to work or sell anybody or hurt anybody.
Question that everyone needs to contemplate now.
Well, what about this indication from President Trump that he would consider sending U.S. citizens described as homegrown criminals to El Salvador? Can he legally do that?
Of course not. What he's saying is we'll have a constitution-free zone. Yes, there are terrible criminals here, but that doesn't mean you can torture them, for example. That's an...
Did you hear him say anything about torture? Okay. I believe the question, which is why I have to pause, because these people are so good. He said, is it okay for him to ship prisoners to another prison? Absolutely not, because you can't torture people. Who said anything about torture? Just threw that in there again to try and gaslight people. But here's something else, Mr. Whoever you are, that president can't do this or do that. He just did it, and they've done it hundreds of times. So I'm pretty sure, yes, he can. Idiots.
It's Amendment violation. That doesn't mean you can violate all the rights. And that's exactly what he's suggesting. We'll do a constitution-free zone.
Wait. How do you violate the rights of someone who ain't supposed to be here? How do you violate the rights of someone who's not an American? I'll wait. You can tell me, Mr. Lawyer Guy. How's that happen?
We send them to our buddies to torture them, and nobody can contest it in the United States. It's pernicious. This is really, even in this case, an abomination of a day with both those suggestions, Boris. I know you can hear it from my tone, but it is way, way beyond the pale and just contempt for the Constitution and rule of law.
You can tell by my tone. I'm really angry right now. Somebody needs to do something about that, because you don't want to see me angry, okay? You can tell from my tone. We don't care about your tone. We ain't scared of your tone. We know what this is all about. We know why you people are freaking out. Here's why you're freaking out.
I think, you want to make this, if anybody here in Watertown, you Democrat Party want to make this a political fight, well, here's a political fight. We did in 3 weeks what Biden didn't do in 4 years. Right now, as you and I are talking, right now, we have the most secure border in the history of this nation, and the data proves it. And when you secure that southern border, at the record we have right now, down 95%, how many Americans aren't dying from fentanyl coming across an open border that Biden had? How many women and children aren't being sex trafficked across that open border? Now we got a border secure. How many no-inspected terrorists or people on watch list are not coming across that border because it's secure? How many billions of dollars is the cartel's not making because that border is secure? President Trump's policies, this administration, saving lives every day. The men and women Border Patrol save thousands of lives every year. This administration is doing the right thing for the American people, securing the border, removing the worst first criminal aliens, and looking for 300,000 missing children that the last administration released to unvetted sponsors. We're going to save those children too. So you can make this political attack all you want. I'm proud of the work of this administration. I'm proud of the work that the folks that work for me are doing.
And that 64-second clip explains everything. When you take that by itself and what he unpackaged there, and he talked about the border being 95 or 96% lower, basically closed. When you talk about the militarization that President Trump has put on the border to make sure it's closed. When you talk about shutting off the money flow so they can't traffic this and drugs and people and everything else, and they keep putting people in jail, and you turn that spigot off. And you talk about doing all that in conjunction with what Doge has done, stopping the fraud as much as possible. When you talk about all this happening, you are describing the end of the Democrat Party. That is why these people are freaking out the way they are. It's not about some dude in El Salvador. They could care less about him. He's a tool. He's a poster boy. What they care about is, OMG, what are we going to do? The border's closed, the money's turned off, and Trump is just out here kicking butt, and we can't step out of line because Pam and Cash and Dan Bongino are watching everything, hopefully. What do we do? What do we do as a party when everything that we've based everything on for decades is a lie? when the issues that people care about, we are 70-20 at best. 70-30. I'm sorry. When that's where you are, what do? And so the messaging that the Trump campaign or the administration have to put out, I love what happened today. They sent out Stephen Miller. I'm going to show you something I didn't have a chance to show you earlier. And Stephen Miller, even what you saw in the Oval Office today, he went after the press even stronger. If that's even possible. You saw, I showed you earlier what he did with Bill Hemmer from Fox News. He then went out and talked to the people in like a little gaggle and even went harder, if that's possible. Harder. Won't get shown on television. They probably won't even talk about it. You may see this stuff on X, but they're not going to want people to see what he says to these people. Take a listen.
It's ordered an additional hearing.
But as an example, there are thousands of either trained Nicaragua members left in this country or their affiliates and associates. So obviously some portion of those will be going to El Salvador as part of our effort to eradicate this foreign terrorist organization from the United States. But there's no upper limit to the agreement. We're going to continue to send foreign terrorist aliens to El Salvador as well as to many other countries.
Is that...
I think you went first.
Is the president asking President Bukele today to send Mr. Rodrigo Garcia back to the U.S.?
Well, again, to be very clear about this, the Supreme Court ruled that the district court cannot, obviously, compel us to conduct diplomacy or foreign policy with another nation. And so they overturned the district court order. And they said very clearly that the district court, it was actually a unanimous ruling, overreached in that ruling. I'm not going to reveal any head of state conversations or conversations at the State Department or the lower level. But the important point that we all agree on is that he's an El Salvadorian. That is his country of nativity and citizenship. He is an illegal alien in the United States. He has no lawful right to be here. He was issued a final order of removal from this country. And so it's up to El Salvador and to the government and the people of El Salvador what the fate of their own citizens is. We can't extradite citizens of foreign countries to our country over the objection of those countries. Obviously, to do that would be a monstrous violation of international law. We can't go into other countries and kidnap their citizens and then take them back into our country. That's up to El Salvador and their own.
To send him back, right?
But it's their own citizen, right? He's in it. This is.
See, the press doesn't get it. Well, you can ask him to send him back. Why do you want him back? I don't get it. I keep seeing it over and over. You can ask, but why would we do that? And so what you're going to see, I guess he's not in the Oval Office, so he gets agitated here. And I love it because finally just goes, you know what, let me just roll up the sleeves and tell you people the what for. Because you obviously aren't hearing this. You're so brain dead, you're like, can you ask nicely? Maybe he'll give him back? We don't want him back. And so he gets kind of forceful here.
So remember, this whole entire conversation has been wrong from the beginning because nobody was mistakenly deported anywhere. That's like the big fact that all of you, most of you have gotten wrong. No one was mistakenly sent anywhere. The only mistake that was made is a lawyer put an incorrect line in a legal filing and they've since been relieved of duty. He is El Salvadorian.
Did you know that? Haven't heard that on the news. Okay, so what he just said was, and they have since fired this person. It was another holdover from the last administration who basically typed in the wrong stuff, which caused all of this. So you got to start thinking, wow, was this entire thing subterfuge? Was it something that somebody who was embedded in the administration from the other administration, did they do this on purpose to try and gum up the works? See, he slid that in there. I'm like, wait. That's some breaking news right there. It's someone else who was working here, who was a scumbag, who we've since had to give her the boot. And I'm like, wait a second. Nobody knew that. Nobody knew that somebody in the White House or DOJ who was working under Pam Bondi purposely, intentionally, tried to did some subterfuge. Did you know that? I didn't know it. That was the first time I'd heard it.
He is an illegal alien. He was deported to El Salvador. I would welcome anyone here to tell me what country they think we should be sending El Salvadorian illegal aliens to.
Didn't a judge order that he not be deported to El Salvador 5 years ago?
So what you're referring to is an immigration judge. So that's Article.
All right, so now this is the fun part, okay? Because again, these people who are asking, this place where they're standing is out where they have all the, hold on, let me show you. All those green things behind him are like where the different networks hang out. When you see people cut, like we've had Monica on the show, everyone's got their little portable studio right there. It's like, Reporters Row. And so when you see them talking, Peter Doocy, whatever, in the background's the White House, this is where they stand. And so it's an entire line of different studios and networks have their own little place where they stand and do those hits. Hi, it's Peter Doocy at the White House, and that's where they stand. And then when he or Caroline come out and do these little gaggles, as they call them, they push them down the hill so they're not in front of someone else's studio, and this is where they have it. And so oftentimes when they bring these reporters in, these reporters they're not the Caitlin Collins level. These are some people maybe new, whatever. And in any event, if it was Caitlin Collins, they don't know law. They've been told by a producer, a Democrat politician, or whatever, ask these questions. And, he's trying, but he's about to let him know right here.
Not Article 3. So there's no Article 3 restraint on his removal. A withholding order or a cancellation of removal order, first of all, as I'm sure you know, does not eliminate the deportation order, right? We all agree on that. So his status was he's an illegal alien who's been ordered deported, which means he could be indefinitely detained and removed to any other country in the world, right? He could be sent to literally any country on the face of the earth. But the preference, general matter, is to deport someone to their home country, right? In this case, El Salvador. Because he is a member of a foreign terrorist organization, withholding orders don't apply to FTOs for obvious reasons. So if you had an illegal alien, say, from Syria, who's a member of ISIS, they can't apply for withholding of removal. So that principle applies here. Furthermore, the gang that he said was going to persecute him, so this theory that he's an MS-13 and this is rival gang, the 18th Street gang, doesn't exist anymore in El Salvador. So the entire concept is false. But again, when the media talks about the idea that there was a mistake in removal, it implies to, I think, a normal listener, the wrong person was sent somewhere. He's an illegal alien from El Salvador. Where was he sent? To El Salvador. Where does he belong? In El Salvador.
Right? It's different sending someone home and sending them into a prison that they could remain.
It is up to El Salvador.
She actually asked that question. Somehow they have conflated deport, meaning he's deported, but he should be able to go home and see mom and dad. Well, honey, that's if you didn't commit crimes. if they snatch somebody and Tom Homan finds somebody and they're just here illegally, yeah, maybe we can deport them and they can just go about their way over there. The press here thinks, well, he got caught here, well, he should just be free in El Salvador. No, I'm sorry, he's done bad stuff. He just gets to go to another jail. They're just going to allocate some space here. It wasn't like he was just a guy who, unfortunately he got caught here because he snuck over the border so he can go live his life back home. No, these people are so stupid. And it's starting, you're going to start seeing Stephen Miller here get pissed off.
How to handle the process for their own citizens. Again, what you seem to be asking us to do is to change the government and the laws of El Salvador. So if we deport somebody back to, for example, Syria, should we be closely involved on a day-to-day basis with the Syrian government, detailing that person's life and future? If we deport, say, 100,000 people back to Haiti, should we open a case file on each of those 100,000 people and ask every day, what's their housing situation? What's their healthcare situation? What might they need? What might they want? Once someone's out of our country, that becomes the problem of their host country, not our country. These people chose to invade us. So there's a lot of concern from the corporate media about the invaders, but they chose to invade us. It's our responsibility to return them back to where they came from or another country willing to take them.
Is the president going to ask for him to be returned to the United States or not? Like, yes or no?
So first of all, it's not a question for me to answer, but I think that...
Isn't this like the third or fourth time? Yes or no? Is he going to ask him to come back here? Lady, man, with all due respect, can I say it again? He's never coming back. Okay, period. And they just... dude's got patience. I'll tell you that, because I would have been like, what don't you understand? He's never coming back. You getting this? And they keep asking the same question.
The assumption that underlies the question is what needs to be corrected, which is that there was no mistake that was made. He was said, like, so what, Mr. What do you think would happen to him if he came back to this country? As your understanding of immigration laws, what do you think would happen?
But I'm just asking
it's important to know.
about whether
You're asking a lot of...
Okay. Just sit back and enjoy this right now. Because he's like, what do you think is going to happen if he comes here? I mean, seriously, here's a question right now that you know from hearing the press. They're not prepared to this answer because whoever they're reading their question from hasn't told them this one yet. So, hey, what do you think is going to happen if by chance, there was some stroke of genius, if it was Easter and President Trump and President Bukele both said, you know what, let him come back. What do you think is going to happen at that point? Very simple question. And they're all starting to they're realizing right now, oh, we stepped into the bear trap. Yeah, you did. Now he's got you. Because you're so stupid, you don't even know what that next step would be. So you asked a question, unlike a lawyer, you asked a question you don't know the answer to, and you're about to find out why you should never ask a question you don't already know the answer to. Well, what happens, if he comes back? Okay.
Questions.
The president,
you're all asking a lot of questions about this, and you all seem to care about it a lot. So let's see if any of you have researched anything about this issue at all. Can anyone here tell me what would happen to the illegal alien from El Salvador if he came back to the United States? Does anyone here know? Does anyone want to guess? Any of you?
He could be with his family.
Did you hear that, idiot? Oh, he could be with his family. Oh, help us. Oh, help us. The reporter said, well, he can be with his family. This is the press. This is the media in the United States. It is a clown show of epic proportions. And he's setting him up. You know what'll happen if he comes here, right? You know what happens if for somehow he'd be with his family. Oh, listen to this.
Does any of you know the answer to the question? Legally, what would happen if he came back here? Does any of you know? Any of you?
Do you really believe the Supreme Court?
I'm talking.
Do you really believe the Supreme Court
doesn't? I'm talking now.
Doesn't think he should be returned? Why was it unanimous?
You're done. Does any of you know the answer to the question? Does any of you? You've been talking about it for days.
All would deport him again.
No. He would be arrested. Okay. He'd be put in confinement. He would be deported the second time to El Salvador again because there's no withholding order for an alien who's a member of a foreign terrorist organization, number one. Number two is the gang that he's a member of doesn't exist in El Salvador anymore. So what you're asking for is to be deported twice. But additionally, if we chose to just pretend that the withholding order was real, he would be deported to a different country. So, for example, he could be deported to Egypt. So, I'm just trying to understand, is it your view, in other words, you define a country that would be willing to take a MS-13 member from El Salvador. So I'm trying to understand from you all is, so if he came back and under our laws, he was then deported to Egypt or to Somalia, would you then be saying, great, I'm so glad that you deported him to another country? Is that what you'd all be saying? Or do you understand our immigration laws at all?
For his return?
But the premise of your question, gentlemen, but yes or no? The return.
Trump's not paying him enough. I give him a raise because you got him talking to idiots, babbling, bib-wearing idiots. Well, what if A is B and B is C, and what does D equal? I don't know. It's like, where do you think he's going? If somehow he jumped on an airplane, assumed an identity, and somehow find his way back on Con Air, and he's sitting next to Nicolas Cage, and he shows up, what do you think's going to happen? He'll always be with his family. Oh, and so Stephen tells him, well, we're just going to do it again, right? And they don't seem to understand it. Yeah, we're just going to pack him up and send him off again. There is no way he's staying here. Even if Donald Trump said, oh, you know what, the Supreme Court really wants me to bring him back, okay. He's probably just going to sit in Gitmo. It doesn't matter. And for some reason, they're not getting it. This guy's never seen the light of day ever again. At least not here.
Guys, do you know the difference between a deportation order and a withholding order? Do you know the difference? Any of you, please. Do you? Well, we're not in the government.
Oh, okay. I don't know if y'all heard that. I hope you. Do you know? Well, we're not in the government. Then shut up. We're not in the government. How are we supposed to know that? Look it up. He actually, some other dude just said that we're not in the government, dude.
White House. You couldn't even spend 72 hours over the weekend learning the distinction, even writing and talking about it this whole time. Stephen,
we're not going anywhere. On the gold cards.
Just raise your hand. Does any of you know the difference between a deportation order and a withholding order?
My question is, how do you know that he is a member of them certain? The White House explicitly said, according to Repellus.
According to our government and his government. In other words, his government has confirmed based on their own intelligence that he's a member of MS-13. First of all, do you dispute that he's an illegal alien?
What's that?
Do you dispute that he's an illegal alien?
No.
Okay. And do you dispute that as an illegal alien, you have the right to deport him?
He went through the process.
He went through the legal process. So I want to be very... what I'm getting from this conversation, which was educational for me, is that not one person in the media knows the difference between a deportation order and a withholding order. Is that a fair statement? You're learning about this all for the first time right now? I guess so. Okay. So...
The guys that are talking, pick up your things, because he just cut him off. He snipped you. He clipped you, okay? You're done. Leave. Ladies, I don't know what you're going to do. Did you even spend this much time researching the difference between this and this? They are not used to this administration. They would get babbling, Raggedy Andy up there and Joe, and they never had to do any homework. And now you're actually going up against somebody who's trying to educate you, but your cognitive dissonance is not allowing you to even listen. He's a Trump guy. I must hate him. There's nothing he can say that's going to change my mind. And because of that cognitive dissonance, you can't even be educated. And because you can't be educated, you can only gaslight Americans with your stories. And so he's trying to give you the information where you could easily go look it up, but you don't want to look it up.
The deportation order means the judge has said he must be deported from the country. He has no right to remain here any longer. He must be removed from the country. So his only options are to be deported to his home country or another country. That's it. There's no other option. He doesn't get to stay here. He doesn't get to live here. He has no future here. He has no right to be here. He's an illegal alien. So when you keep saying return, because you've been spun up by the open borders advocates, you all seem to be operating under the illusion that he would be able to come to the United States and just continue to live here illegally. That's not an option available to him. His only choices in life are to live in El Salvador or to live in another country. That's it. There's no other option, legally or otherwise, because he came to our country illegally. Do you understand that?
The only good thing about that is their faces weren't on camera. That's the only good thing about that, because if that press group, if their faces were on camera, we could circle them and go, your career's toast and your career's toast. You might as well just quit now by saying, he's going to hang out with his family. You just go home. Just go sit in Starbucks and start making some damn coffee, okay? Because you're done. You're absolutely done. Maybe one day they let you run, I don't know, the fry-later at Burger King. I saw that and I'm like, oh my God. What have we done? How have colleges put these people out? How did these networks hire these people who have no ability to think? They have no idea what they're doing. It's absolutely mind-boggling. Bless you, Stephen. I mean, bless you. You went out there and spent that time. Well, it's not really hot in Washington right now, but it must have been like, are you people real? Are you AI? Is there Is there anything in there? Wow. That's what the Trump administration is dealing with. That's what you guys need to be aware of when you hear people talking on X and saying all kinds of things, because they have those people out there spreading BS everywhere. It's incredible. It's absolutely incredible. I'm going to take a break and we're going to come back and take some comments before we talk some more about this. Wow.
Back to Fanfare with Barry Cunningham.
You guys see that kind of stuff. I love looking at your comments and your KRO Barry. Anyone that has a liberal in their life totally understands what the present administration is dealing with. No logic, they won't listen. Nope, they won't. That's cognitive dissonance. If people ever wanted to know what cognitive dissonance is, it was on display. There's nothing you can tell these people. That you are such an aberration to them that they don't want to even talk to people who are MAGA, and so they're definitely not going to listen because they already have their bias, their confirmation bias that the guy gets to come home. No, he doesn't get that. There is no home. What are you talking about? And so now you get an understanding even deeper now as to how these people just conjure up these things, and how AOC and Bernie can go to these rallies and oligarchy, which we're going to talk about later, because they're just whipped up. And they think we're the ones in a cult. They're the ones who keep pointing at us and saying we're fascists and Nazis and everything else. I'm like, have you seen what's gone on in the news lately? Who's burning stuff up and running through the streets? Not us. Not any of us. So, I don't know, we just live our lives, and hopefully none of you guys bother us or scratch our cars or firebomb our garages. I mean, we're not doing it. It's insane. How much they're clueless. They really are clueless. Gina says her daughter won't listen. See, that's the other thing. If you ever get to talk, I did it when I did my man on the street thing. You're always 2 or 3 questions away from them screaming and running away. Because there's nothing, as you pull it apart and look, hey, let me look in here. What do you think about this? Ah! And they're going to run away. It's so predictable. It's so easy. If you go up to somebody, if you talk to somebody, like Gina says, her daughter, and you ask 2 or 3 questions, you can literally see their faces contort and just get mad. You're mean MAGA. I'm trying to have a conversation with you. Can we have a conversation? You understand this guy can't go anywhere, right? You know, what do you think's going to happen if he comes back here? And then you can just see in their faces, they start shutting down because nobody's told them that answer yet. You know the old joke, hey, if I want your opinion, I'll give it to you. That's what happens on the left. They have to be given their opinion. The media has to tell them what to think. And so they lie to them over and over. Oh, man. You can't talk to stupid. No. Most of the media are complete idiots. You all sound so dumb. Oh, gosh. Really love your show tonight. Thank you. Thank you. Thank you. It's just too crazy. TDS is really a thing. You cannot have a conversation with you. That's one of the things I think that bothers me the most. You know, because I like you guys, I've known people that I trust, I knew, I was around, and people I really thought were intelligent, and I've watched them turn into zombies right in front of me. And I never understood it because I'm like, you know, 2014 when I knew you, you were level-headed. You know, there was no Trump coming down the escalator. It was like, yeah, you know, even when Obama was president, I wasn't going crazy. We would, you know, be able to go to a football game. Everything was fine. No problem. And ever since 2016, half the country has lost their freaking minds. Gone. And I think to myself, I didn't change. I'm the same conservative guy I was that they knew back then. I didn't like baby removal. I didn't want to see Transformers. I didn't want to see people coming across the border. No, I didn't change. The guy came down the escalator, and I'm like, that's the guy I want. That's the only thing different. In fact, I'll share a secret with you. I have probably relaxed some from where I used to be. Oh, yeah. I'm not nearly as rabid, as they would say, a conservative as I used to be. I didn't even want to talk to people who lived in that alternative lifestyle. And I realized if you're going to live in Florida, especially South Florida, better get used to it. Better get used to it. Don't mean you got to prove. Ain't my job to approve. Ain't my job to pass judgment. But if I'm going to do business or do anything in South Florida, trust me. Trust me. You might want to just get, you know, used to it. Don't let it get you. When I was out buying houses, and again, you can look at a town here called Wilton Manors. Wilton Manors is right out, probably outside of like Key West in New York, probably the biggest alternative lifestyle community you'd ever see. And I was selling houses in there because most of the people who live this alternative lifestyle have two incomes, and most of them have two stable, strong incomes, especially the older ones. I'm like, okay, you want to buy a house? Yeah, okay. And so I've actually relaxed somewhat. I don't pass the judgment. I leave that up to someone else to do. So I haven't changed. They did. They're the ones who went crazy. They're the one. I had never been called a racist in my life, and then all of a sudden, somehow, I became a racist. I'm like, how does that happen? I didn't change. I bet you didn't change. The people around you changed. They got whipped up by the media. It's crazy. Yeah, it was Obama. Yeah, exactly. I sincerely doubt the sanity and rationale of anyone who still claims to be a Democrat at this juncture. That's why when I talk to Mark Mitchell, I hear the polling numbers, and I'm like, are there still that many people who are just willing to toe the line? Maybe because they have to. Like Gina and some other people here, you know who friends that you've lost, and even maybe some relatives, you've had to go through that. Maybe they're not strong enough to go through that. So they become yes men and yes women, and they just agree with everything because they can't possibly see themselves on the other side until it's time to vote, where nobody can see it. See, it's easy to be anti-Trump, anti-MAGA on the outside, but a whole lot of votes got voted for Trump, and who knows how many of those people went into the booth and said, for Trump. Who knows? The funny thing is, I thought if you were black, you couldn't be you couldn't be racist. I'm like, and I went, who am I racist against? Got a white wife. Don't hate myself. Got a lot of Hispanic friends. I must be one of the worst racists you ever met. Oh, I'm racist against who? They can't. Lady Veronica says, one fun fact about I was pink-pilled before I became red and MAGA when President Trump. Yeah. I will never forgive or forget the lies that are being told by the liberal media. With no conscience whatsoever, they lie to these people. Let's see. A lot of these people are doing is hard for them to admit and accept. Exactly. Just say what we tell you. How smart do you have to be? The demons come out. Yeah, and this being Holy Week, that's one of the things I'm concerned about. Are we going to see a bunch of that craziness this week? As you mentioned that, let me show you something that came out, President Trump put out. Let me get to this. Because I'm pretty sure this is going to tick some people off too. All right. This week, being Holy Week, Melania and I join in prayer with Christians celebrating the crucifixion and resurrection of our Lord and Savior, Jesus Christ. Notice he said "our." The living Son of God who conquered death, freed us from sin, and unlocked the gates of heaven for all of humanity, President Trump. And here it is, a picture of Melania and President Trump with what they just said. Sure, I'm not even going to go through the comments in there because I'm sure they went crazy with it. Then he went further with this post. It's pretty long, so I'm not going to read the whole thing, but this Holy Week, Christians remember the crucifixion. We celebrate his glorious resurrection and proclaim, as Christians have done for nearly 2,000 years, he is risen. Through the pain and sacrifice of Jesus on the cross, we saw God's boundless love and devotion to all humanity, and in that moment of his resurrection, history was forever changed with the promise of everlasting life. I guess I am reading the whole thing. As we approach this joyous Easter Sunday, I want to wish Christians everywhere a happy and very blessed holiday. America is a nation of believers. We need God. We want God, and with his help, we will make our nation stronger, safer, greater, more prosperous, and more united than ever before. Thank you and happy Easter. So I understand that there's a whole week of activities that are going to be happening, and if there's speeches or prayers that the White House is going to be doing, I will be sure to bring that to you. But you got to believe that this stuff is ticking people off. And so this week, I'm just saying, guards up. Be very careful. With everything that we're seeing happening, just be very careful. I'm sure you guys have been looking the other way and looking around, making sure people aren't doing crazy things. But just be careful. All right, so that's all I'm going to say right now. Don't forget, Thursday night, we're doing prayer night at 7 p.m. So before I jump ahead with some more video stuff, got to show you guys something, because this is interesting. You know how they say turnabout is fair play? Well, this could get very interesting. It says, Big Letitia here is a totally corrupt politician. She should resign from her position as New York State Attorney immediately. Everyone is trying to make America great again, and it can never be done with this wacky crook in office. She's caught in her own potential fraud case of her own. So here's what's happened, and it's starting to develop. Here's what happened with Letitia. Letitia James took out mortgages on other properties that she didn't live in. And I believe both of them are in Virginia. She's in, a Manhattan attorney. Well, when you sign up, and I know this because this is my wheelhouse in real estate. When she signed up and took out these mortgages, she swore that those mortgages on those other homes were her primary residence. You see, the bank wouldn't have given her those loans, or at least not with those terms, if she said those were secondary or investment properties. I know for a fact how this works. You have to tell them, I am going to be living in this house, or this is a rental, this is an investment property, this is a second home. So if you tell them, because a lot of people don't know this, when you take out a mortgage and you sign your name and you submit those statements, if those statements are fraudulent, you just committed federal mail fraud, possibly federal wire fraud. So Letitia James swore in her documents that she lived in those homes, which is pretty much impossible because you couldn't live in both of them at the same time anyway. So as an officer of the court, albeit in New York, she said that she bought these houses and she was living in them, which is going to give her two problems. Because she can't say I live in Virginia, because then the state of New York is going to have a problem like, how in the hell you are Attorney General? And you can't say, I don't live there, because then you've just let Pam Bondi know you've committed wire fraud. She's in big trouble. And because you're a lawyer and you commit fraud, yeah, you're probably going to lose your license. I wouldn't want to be Letitia James right now, because also it's not in her jurisdiction. It's going to be tried, if it goes that far, which I think it will. She'll be tried in Virginia. This is going to get very, very interesting. The same person, the very same person who tried to steal Mar-a-Lago from Donald Trump and saying, oh, it's not worth it, it's mortgage fraud, that property's only worth like $18 million. You had the audacity to question him and call it mortgage fraud when you actually did it. Let that sink in. Here we are, a year removed from the trial in New York, when Merchan and Letitia James and Alvin Bragg were doing all this stuff. Two different cases, the Merchan and then the other one, the crazy judge that looked like Bernie Sanders. You know, hey, Mar-a-Lago's not worth that much money. You lied. Yeah, now what you gonna do, Letitia? This is gonna be fun to watch. And now you're under the auspices of Pam Bondi. Merrick Garland's not there. And so this may give you a peek into something. You know, some people earlier were saying I was too hard on Pam Bondi. Let me ask you a question. How did this story blossom up? How did this story just now become a story? Who knew about the fact that she even had other properties? Who's already looked at these mortgages? How did they realize that she took mortgages that said that was her primary residence? Who's doing all this investigatory, surface level stuff before any charges get filed? Could it be that Pam Bondi, Kash Patel have been digging into so many of these different people while they don't even know? You don't have to subpoena somebody for a deed and a mortgage. It's filed. And the public stuff. Before I even get to you, Letitia, I'm looking at all the stuff I can see in public. I don't need a subpoena for this. I'll need a subpoena for your bank account records. I'll need a subpoena. But now if I have some sort of prima facie evidence that something happened wrong, now I have a predicate to go ahead and open an investigation. How did they find out about these mortgages? Now, I said a lot of legal terms there, but basically, if you were going to go after Letitia James, it'd be kind of hard to just go after her because she was messing with you last year. You got to have a reason to go after Letitia James. Not like they did with Trump, where, you start fishing for a crime. Nothing's been filed. There's no grand jury. None of that. Somebody has been looking. Somebody somewhere told by somebody else to go look into these mortgages. I don't know who did, but now it's surfaced, and don't even need a subpoena. And someone's reading, look right here, clause 114 on page 65 says this is a owner-occupied mortgage. It's recorded. Look, we now have prima facie evidence that this might have been mortgage or wire fraud. Now we have a reason to open an investigation. Letitia James, do you live here? No, I live in New York. Thank you. That's all I need to hear. Now I can open this. So somebody's looking at something. That just didn't pop up. Nobody sent an email to this news station and said, "Oh, by the way, she's got a house someplace that nobody knows about." Here, look. Here's the article. Let me just bring it over here and show you. And here's the article. It says, AG Letitia James caught in a potential fraud case of her own. And it says, New York Attorney General Letitia James is now facing questions surrounding real estate transactions she executed in August 2023, just weeks before she filed against Trump. The document in question is called a specific power of attorney, signed by her, is raising legal concerns about whether she may have misrepresented her intent to establish a principal residence in Virginia, potentially impacting her eligibility to hold office in New York or exposing her to legal liability. The issue was flagged by Sam Anter, a former certified public accountant and convicted fraudster who now works in forensic accounting. Okay, so this guy Sam Anter has been digging. On whose behalf? It says here, Anter gained notoriety in the 80s for his role as the CFO of Crazy Eddie, a now defunct electronic retailer involved in one of the largest financial frauds of the decade. After a plea deal, Antar turned his efforts toward uncovering white-collar crime. In his recent post on his website, White Collar Fraud, Antar published documents tied to James' real estate transaction in Norfolk, Virginia. And then, lo and behold, look who talked about it. Roger Stone. Busted. New York Attorney General Letitia James declares Virginia home her primary residence, which means she's legally ineligible to be the Attorney General of New York, or if she did not move to Virginia, she lied to obtain a mortgage. Checkmate. You got one or the other. If you live in Virginia, you can't be the New York State Attorney General. If you live in New York, you committed mortgage fraud. Pick your poison here. Either way, this guy happened to be digging, and this guy here, Roger Stone, happened to post the story. Roger Stone. Nah, there's nothing going on behind the scenes, is there? Roger Stone just happened to dig this up and get approached by this guy. What do you think if that happened? If this guy Sam the looky-loo found this and he just happened to reach out to Roger Stone, who do you think knows about it now? Not a big reach there, is it? Oh man, I heard about it a couple days. She has no moves on the board. No, She better get a lawyer. Get a lawyer and lawyer up. No deals. So anyway, I don't know if Pam Bondi is even involved in this, but it just kind of looked I don't know, odd that all of a sudden Crazy Eddie just happened to be looking at Letitia James's mortgage history. That's kind of odd. There are a lot of things I do in the morning, get ready for my shows and do different things, but I can tell you for sure, looking up Letitia James's mortgage history isn't something that I just would happen to do. Oh yeah. Well, have you noticed that everything the left accuses someone of doing, it's actually something they're guilty of themselves? Yeah. And it's crazy. The Trump train is coming. So I fully believe Pam is doing very diligent work to make ironclad cases. And it seems as though somebody has a number of people out there just kind of looking. So if I was Nancy Pelosi, AOC, some of these people, Eric Swalwell, Adam Schiff, I would be really worried that somebody in your orbit is looking at stuff. And they may not have found anything concrete yet, but obviously people are looking, which tells you that, interesting, maybe that's why they're freaking out too. Because if you're getting looked at by the grand jury because an investigation's been open, But right now, she's got complete plausible deniability and say, no, we haven't opened an investigation on Letitia James. No, we haven't done anything. Say it with a straight face. Meanwhile, other people are looking. So I can't even imagine once they start digging. And because here's the other thing. Now that Roger Stone had put it out there a couple days ago and other people see it, now the digging begins. Now it becomes like Super Mario and people are going to look everywhere. And unfortunately for some of these people in the Democrat Party, it's too late. See, she can't undo this. It's already been filed. So she filed these mortgages in their mortgage company and all these different things. They've already been filed. Then you can start looking at, well, did you declare that you own this property? What name is it under? Did you put it in the LL? Oh, somebody's doing something. I'm just going to leave it at that. Whether it's Pam or they've got people looking, in any event, somebody's doing something. All right, so let's move on. I'm going to change subjects here. We're going to talk about the tariffs. So listen to this.
Hey, President, can you talk a little bit about the semiconductor tariff that you posted on Truth Social today? What is the timeline for that? And I believe it's Jameson Greer said today that those will not be negotiable. Once those tariffs are in place, they're not negotiable. Is that right?
But the tariffs will be in place in the not-distant future because, as you know, like we did with steel, like we did with automobiles, like we did with aluminum, which are now fully on, we'll be doing that with semiconductors, with chips, and numerous other things. And that'll take place in the very near future.
And all the things.
And what we did is we want to uncomplicate it from a lot of companies because that's really where it should be, ideally. And we wanted to uncomplicate it from a lot of other companies because we want to make our chips and semiconductors and other things in our country. And I will tell you, another one is pharmaceuticals, drugs and pharmaceuticals. We want to make our drugs in this country. And by placing a tariff on the companies that are not in this country, they're going to move into our country and we're going to have our drugs made in the United States. So that in case of war, in case of whatever, we're not relying on China and various other countries to supply us with drugs, which is not a good idea. And it'll happen very fast. It'll all happen very fast.
Do you know what rate the semiconductor tariff?
I'm going to be announcing it over the next week.
We've got all right, so President Trump being a little bit coy there on the airplane this past weekend. And again, the press, they don't listen. He's like, I'm about to announce some stuff this week. Stay tuned. And they don't believe him. They think he's full of crap and everything else, and that, the economy's horrible and the stock market's tanking and, all these different things, and you're hurting China. And
in the trade team and even deputies of people in the trade team talking to just about everybody on earth. And I think that we've got more than 10 deals where there's very, very good, amazing offers made to the U.S. That USTR Trade Representative Jameson Greer and Howard Lutnick and the rest of our trade team and the president are stewing over whether those deals are good enough. And so I think that the one question that I have open in my mind is, should we go one at a time or should we announce a bundle all at once, because we have so much progress made so quickly. And don't forget, because this president's plan was pretty much sketched the way you and I have talked about it right from the beginning, even before he was inaugurated. And so there have been a heck of a lot of talks that have been ongoing throughout the time that we've been here. And so even before the Reciprocal Trade Act was announced, I think we had 2 or 3 deals that were very, very close to being closed. It's like the president will decide when he's satisfied with a deal and when he wants to announce it and how many all at once. But I can tell you the progress has been astonishing.
So these deals are beginning to happen, and you've got the Biden, Obama teams, and they're out there trying to trash Trump as much as they possibly can, rooting against America. Understand right now, if you were truly for America, every single one of these former politicians and former office holders shouldn't be screaming on these television networks. They should be saying, I really hope Trump can pull this out. I really hope the president and his team can make this for America. But that's not what they're doing. You see, they're exposing themselves as being completely anti-American, especially this nut.
Completely chaotic. I know a lot of relief was
felt when we discovered on Friday night or Saturday that computers and phones, electronics would be exempt from the highest Chinese tariffs. But then we were told yesterday that that's just a temporary reprieve and that there will be further developments there. So really, things have been just chaotic. The reciprocal tariffs put on, then paused. Don't know what's going to happen next. This is really creating an environment in which households and businesses feel paralyzed by the uncertainty about what's going to happen. It makes.
How does she think that people felt when she was the Secretary of the Treasury? You know, the uncertainty that she was talking. Well, I guess there wasn't too much uncertainty back then because it was certainly they were trying to tank the economy. You were doing everything possible to make America poor. That was certain. That was your plan. The uncertainty right now that she's experiencing is that what do we do if Trump's actually successful? Because if he does bring business back, our whole administration is going to look stupid.
And almost impossible.
Have you gotten calls from any of your former counterparts that are either allies or enemies or others trying to understand what's going on? And I'm curious if you have what you tell them.
Well, I have had a few meetings, and the truth is, I honestly don't know what to tell them because these are huge. I've said self-inflicted wound to me. President Trump is taking a sledgehammer. Not only that he's pounding our allies with this, but he's pounding the U.S. economy with this sledgehammer. And I don't understand the rationale for the tariffs. Most economists would say if what you're trying to do is to reduce the trade deficit, imposing tariffs is not going to be successful and is not the way to go about doing that. The best approach there would be greater fiscal discipline, which we're not likely to see.
A few moments later.
And by the way, as a footnote here, NVIDIA just said it will produce supercomputers entirely built in the U.S.
Right. That was on the same show. It was almost like the guys from CNBC were setting her up. I watched that this morning. I'm like, oh my God. I mean, she's talking about this isn't how you do things because, I've talked to economists around the world and Trump's stupid and this isn't how you do it because, and we're never going to see these kind of jobs come back. It's just not going to happen. And then they went to a commercial, and when they went to a commercial, they came back talking about NVIDIA.
And also, I don't know if you saw the notes about NVIDIA to manufacture American-made AI supercomputer for U.S. for the first time. Yes. Gigantic commitment of $500 billion. Interestingly enough, that's the same amount that Apple committed, but people were a little...
Okay, you're not going to blow through that. I'm sorry, Jim. That's too big of a number to yada, yada, yada through. $500 billion. NVIDIA committed, just like Apple, $500 billion to work with President Trump. They literally announced that sequential to what she was complaining about. And Jim Cramer, who said that today or whatever the stock market was going to implode, he's having to read it. $500 billion. Yeah, that's a lot of damn money.
Suspicious of the White House about Apple. No one's suspicious of NVIDIA because if we don't have those chips. NVIDIA's in all the missiles, Carl. Did some checking on this. All the missiles are driven by NVIDIA chips.
They are? Really?
Yes.
Already?
I got this, yeah.
They're already incorporating the latest chips in things that were...
He looks so uncomfortable. Did Trump just do $500 billion? Did he really just do $500 billion investment? Did one of the most blue chip stocks that everybody is on right now, NVIDIA is one of the hottest stocks on the market because of AI and everything else. Did they really just do a deal with President Trump? Do I look completely stupid? Why would anybody listen to Jim Cramer ever again? Ever. Oh, yeah, they just did a deal with him.
On the drawing board many years ago? Really?
You know, Jim, I agree with you.
Well, I like to question you before I agree with you.
You know what, David? You know how you see these ads about people who like do some work, the phones?
I'm aware of how hard you work. Well, I just want to make sure that
I actually
that
have
was
dinner with people who put in
that was an accurate statement.
I have dinner with people who put NVIDIA chips in the missiles, okay?
No, I have dinner with people who put NVIDIA chips in their dinner. They eat those NVIDIA chips.
Oh my God, they must be smart.
They're so smart.
I eat Wheaties.
We should point out, when they say supercomputer, that's what they're really referring to now, their chips as supercomputers.
Yes, well,
I don't want people to get confused.
Just to give you a little bit further, this is all about AI. And you can hear these guys talking about potato chips and stuff. They got nothing to say. They got completely shocked that after all the stuff that has been happening with Jim Cramer saying we're going to have Black Monday and how things are just going to, the entire market is going to fall apart and blah, 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 blah. And they're sitting there looking around. They don't really have much to say because somebody just dropped $500 billion into their investment into America. $500 billion. Nothing to say.
That they're somehow building something new.
On the possible insider trading and market manipulation, you are one of the people who have been calling for an investigation into the president and those around him.
And so CNN, instead of being happy that, wow, things were actually happening. Again, this is how Democrats act. This was the narrative last week that they were running with, saying that, oh my goodness, what are we doing? People are making money. And if people are making money, they did it because Donald Trump did some insider trading, when openly posting and telling people now would be a good time to buy is kind of the opposite of being an insider. There's no whispering going on. There's nothing quiet. Hey, everybody should buy. But this idiot.
Do you see evidence to warrant an investigation? Do you think there will be one?
Well, to be clear, market manipulation is fraud. It is a felony. And
you don't know what a question is. The question that she asked him was, do you think there will be an investigation? Which I can tell you right now, I can answer that, and I'm not in Congress. There's no way in hell there's going to be an investigation. Why? Because Mike Johnson controls the House. It's not going to happen. So you guys can go on CNN and fantasize and have your mental masturbation about catching Trump again. Maybe this time we get him. It ain't going to happen. Sorry, bro.
When you look at the facts, and that is why I am joining with my colleague, Representative Terry Sewell, who is the ranking member of the Oversight Committee for Ways and Means, along with 131 House Democrats calling for a full investigation. An investigation that wants to look at how Donald Trump tanked the market with tariffs, then spiked it with the pause, but only after he gave notice to his billionaire friends. And
only after he gave notice to his billionaire friends. I read the notice to everyone. Now would be a good time to buy. It didn't say, hey, Elon, now would be a good time to buy. It wasn't like, hey, Zuckerberg, now would be a good time to buy. Hey, Jeff Bezos, Dana White. Nope. It put out there on True Social, now would be a good time to buy. What are you talking about? And why would CNN even be promoting this guy? Nothing is going to happen. You realize at this point, Barry, why are you showing this? Because over and over and over, you see a party that's just drifting. They have nothing. All they can do is sit back and wonder, how do we make this happen? What can we do and they can't take this.
We're going to win so much, you may even get tired of winning. And you'll say, please, please, it's too much winning. We can't take it anymore. Mr. President, it's too much. And I'll say, no, it isn't. We have to keep winning. We have to win more. We're going to win more.
You know, one of the things that I consider a win is listening to these people. Because the more I hear them talk, the more I see them sad on CNBC, I consider that winning. The more you see Democrats and the nuts, the media, look sullen, that's a win. That's a win every time you see them doing that, because at some point it's breaking them inside. You can talk about an investigation all you want. CNN can put it on there. It's more just to gaslight the people watching. It's never going to happen. Never. And so if it's never going to happen, it shouldn't be a news story. But then again, bringing some guy from El Salvador is never going to happen. They are doing stories on fantasies. You're hoping, you're praying, whoever it is you pray to, and you're having all of the mental masturbation that you possibly can conjure up on a fantasy. So when you look at the Democrat Party and you look at the media and you realize there is nothing constructive about what they're doing. They have nothing that they can basically make happen. Everything is about a fantasy. And that's where they've put their entire constituency, is to believe fantasy. Nothing. Hey, what are we going to do about this? Nothing. You can do nothing.
The proof is there. $300 billion of additional increases for billionaires and their investments, while Americans whose retirements, whose health...
Were they all Republican? I just wondered, because you said, billionaires. There's, George Soros. There's a bunch of Democrats that have billions, but, is that who you're talking about? I don't know.
Savings accounts were put at risk. That is why we are calling for a full investigation, and those who were involved should be held responsible.
Congressman, thanks so much for your time. John.
There was a movie I reference here many times, and it's called Other People's Money with Dan DeVito. Dan DeVito plays Larry the Liquidator, and he goes around and he buys companies, and he buys them based upon their assets and cuts them all up and then sells them by pieces. They're worth more dead than they are alive. These Democrats are worth more dead than they're alive as a party. There's nothing there. And there's a part in that movie I've quoted before. Let me make sure I get it. He says things like, he said, amen, amen, and amen. You see, I always say amen after a prayer. And what you just heard there, like you heard with the people talking to Stephen Miller, is a prayer. It just happens to be a prayer for the dead. They've got nothing. I didn't kill them. You didn't kill them. They were dead for quite some time. And all they've had of the ability to do is steal your money, rig some elections, and that's how they move forward. But right now, we're seeing prayers for the dead happening on a daily basis. There's nothing concrete about what he said. There's nothing concrete about what Hakeem Jeffries says. There's nothing there. It's a prayer for the dead every time CNN puts one of these people on. If you guys get a chance, that's a really funny movie. But the parallel I just told you, I cannot believe I remember that scene in the movie. When he starts clapping, amen, amen, and amen. There's nothing there. The reason why I show this stuff is because I would tell you, we got something to worry about. That doesn't bode well. That doesn't bode well either. But I don't see it. I would be, somebody remiss. Somebody said last week, Barry, you're not telling people the truth about the stock market, and you're losing your integrity. And I'm like, I believe what I say. And if I look at the stock market since that guy said it at that time, and I mentioned it with Mark today, Mark Mitchell. And here, let me just show you guys this. Many of you probably already know it because you're probably investing, or you look at it from your 401k perspective. But this is what's really interesting to me. Let me see if what did I do? Okay, I'm trying to get it in this window. All right. So, this is the Dow Jones. This is the stock market. And it's up 312 today. But remember, way back when all this tariff stuff happened, if I click the 5-day view, and you look down at the map, the chart here, ooh, something happened. And then there's another dip, and it's still going up. It's still going up. If you held instead of freaking out, you're up 4%. They're having to resort to this because people are saying, oh, yeah, that little pain that Trump said, was that the little pain? Is that it? Everyone was freaking out. Was that the pain? Because nobody can show me anything else. We go to the grocery store. We went to the movies last night. Went to dinner on Saturday night. Guy came over today and did some work on the house. People smiling. Where's this pain they keep talking about? They can't convince enough people that there is pain. The only people who convince that there's a whole bunch of pain are the nuts, because their cognitive dissonance won't allow them to believe, oh, we're doing okay, huh? Wow. Next week or next 10 days or so, the biggest meat market in the world is going to occur. And that meat market that will occur is also known as the NFL Draft. And of course, they're going to pick these kids and they're going to become multi-gazillionaires overnight. But that's not what I want you to focus on if you watch the NFL Draft. What I want you to focus on is there's going to be about 110,000 people cheering in adulation for the guys who get drafted, who flew across the country with real ID. No, maybe not yet. Who are going to be there having a grand time. I don't know if you guys know what Coachella is. Coachella is a huge music festival. And the tickets for Coachella, for a 3-day event, 5-day, maybe in excess of 1,000, maybe 5,000 if you want a good seat. Packed. Packed. So it's very, of course the media won't talk about it, but it's very hard to convince people that their life that they're living isn't what is really happening. Oh, it's really bad out there. I'm going to Coachella. What do you mean? I'm about to have me a good time. Me and my friends here. Oh, it's really, really bad out there. You better watch out. I'm flying out to wherever they're holding an NFL draft this year, where every hotel is packed. And we're going to just have a grand old time and see who this year's losing team drafts. It's hard to tell people that life sucks when it doesn't. And I had told you, look around, like I told my grandson's friend when he was asking about, is there a recession coming? Like, you'll notice it when people start pulling back. And so when you're out in your daily life and you're looking around and the stores are crowded and people are still buying, and, movies like King of Kings are breaking records. Kind of hard to say the movies are breaking records if people are feeling a whole bunch of pain. That's why they're losing. They can't keep up the charade. Only to idiots. Coachella is a wasteland, yeah. They have nothing to prove market manipulation. It is. It's all fantasy. It's complete fantasy land. So in a second here, I'm going to talk to you about some more fantasy, because well, I'm gonna just let you hear it for yourself, and then we can talk about it, because man, what I'm going to show you next is going to prove to you that we are indeed in fantasy land. So listen, I want to talk to you for a second about Patriot Addict and the Trump red knife. Now understand, I understand that there are a lot of people in this community who may be a little bit older and not understand. So when Patriot Addict says we're going to give you this knife for free, and then all you have to do is scan this QR code right over here to order it, and shipping is just 13 or 14 bucks, and you get the $70 retail price knife for free, because they normally sell it for 70, but they're doing it for free to my viewers, and just pay for shipping. And so some people have said, Barry, after I do it, a bunch of other windows may pop up, and then they may get text or emails. They're trying to sell me other things. That's called marketing. They're not trying to stiff you. They're trying to see if you hey, listen, we're giving this to you for free. So if you get this for free, maybe you might want to buy this. Or maybe you might want to buy that. I don't know if you've ever gone to U-Haul and clicked on a U-Haul and tried to rent it, and then everything keeps coming up. You need some tape? How about some blankets? Maybe a dolly or two. You need all that stuff because they're trying to get you to purchase things. That doesn't mean scam. That's just part of marketing. But in any event, this is the Trump red knife that each of you have seen me hold up many times, and maybe this time you'll buy it. And without cutting myself, here's the knife. As I've shown before, it's a pretty big knife. It's got some really good weight to it, great for fishing, doing stuff in hunting. Blade is strong. There it is right there. It's got the blade to cut a seatbelt should you get caught, and it's got a window notch so you can pop out a window if you're stuck, or if somebody, get in an accident or something, you can get out of it. All you've got to do is retails for $70. You can get it for free for like 13, 14 bucks shipping. Just go ahead and go to the QR code right here, or go to barryknife.com. And then they'll go ahead and send it to you. So thank you for watching that, and we'll take a 90-second break.
Back to Fanfare with Barry Cunningham.
So I'm going to show you something now that may show you specifically how desperate these people really are. But as I talked with Mark Mitchell earlier, it's desperation, but desperation that we need as Trump supporters, as MAGA, to begin keeping our eye on, because we don't want to get caught with our pants down. Listen to this.
Just want to let y'all know where I'm at. Not interested in running. Hope it doesn't come to that. But I was told I owe it to all of us to at least leave the door open. That's what I did. By the way, this Sunday, I'm scheduled to be on This Week with George Stephanopoulos on ABC. And practically every other network is called. They're apparently taking it very seriously. So I have no choice but to do so. It's just come down to that. It just comes down to that.
You think? All right, so Stephen A., if you have no choice but to take things seriously, then you are stepping into that realm now where you become conversation bait. because now we need to be talking about this guy. Since he decides, you know, he wants to take things seriously, time to start talking about you, Steve. We'd be talking about Hillary. We'd be talking about AOC or Bernie. Now we're going to have to start talking about you. And I don't think Stephen A. Smith, my personal opinion, I don't think Stephen A. Smith has any intention of running for president. I'm going to tell you why after we go through this, but I'm a marketer. The dude's a marketer. He's got a brand. I understand what he's doing. And I'm going to tell you what exactly it is he's doing.
And I have no choice because I've had elected officials, and I'm not going to give their names, elected officials coming up to me. I've had folks who are pundits come up to me. I've had folks that got a lot of money, billionaires and others, that have talked to me about exploratory committees and things of that nature. I'm not a politician. I've never had a desire to be a politician. I just signed a contract extension with ESPN. I am very, very
pretty
happy
good one too
with my day job. I'm very happy with my boss. This is a pretty damn good one. Just right. It's a pretty damn good contract. I couldn't be happy.
And that's it. You see, Stephen A. Smith, unlike Trump and other people who get into politics, Stephen A. Smith likes his money. He loves his money. He loves the trappings of his success. Stephen A. Smith just signed a contract in excess of $100 million. But as you've seen in politics, you have to divest yourself of those interests should you get in the ring. Now, unlike Trump and unlike others, he doesn't have $100 million. There's a big difference there. He signed a $100 million contract over, I think it was 5 or 6 years. So if you decide in 26 that you want to run for president, you're not going to see the rest of that money. ESPN's going to pay you up until the point where you're like, hey, listen, I want to run for president. And then, you don't got to pay me the rest. So at that point, unless he wants to get into some campaign finance mistakes, he's walking away from potentially $80 million guaranteed. Guaranteed. He's never seen this kind of money that ESPN is throwing around. So it's my estimation. Well, I'll hold the rest of what I'm going to say.
Yeah, but here's the reality. People have walked up to me, including my own pastor, for crying out loud, who has said to me, you don't know what God has planned for you. At least show the respect to the people who believe in you, who respect you, who believe that you can make a difference in this country, to leave the door open for any possibilities 2 to 3 years down the line. And that's what I've decided to do. But again, whether it's Governor Westmore, who I know, or Governor Josh Shapiro from Pennsylvania, who I know, Andrew Cuomo, who I had the pleasure of interviewing, who's trying to get back in things and be the next mayor of New York, etc. I see a lot of people that obviously and clearly are more qualified than me. But in the same breath, when you think about what Trump is getting away with, when you think about what you brought up about Steve Bannon, who's trying to be slick because he's looking at a non-political individual like myself, looking at me as a populist, but you better be careful what you ask for, because some of the stuff that Trump and the right has been trying to get away with, like circumventing the 22nd Amendment of the Constitution, talking about how there could be a third term, be careful what you wish for, because if any GOP member, if any Republican supports that, I don't want to hear a word out of their mouth ever again about the following the Constitution, the Constitution, the Constitution. That's what they've been living off for years. And then you're talking about circumventing the 22nd Amendment, and you think that's cool? No way. That's not something that we should stand for. So I would hope somebody else would step up that's more qualified than me. But if it
I bet you do. I bet you do. We know you hope somebody steps up. Not too soon. Because this is cool. I'm on ABC, I'm on Hannity, I'm getting all this publicity, I'm getting all this FaceTime. This is cool. But it's different when you actually sign and fill out those papers. Because at that point, They're going to bend you over backwards, Stephen A., and they're going to find every imperfection, nook and cranny. They're going to dig into you every which way but Sunday, and they're going to find out some things that I'm pretty sure Stephen A. Smith doesn't want to talk about. See, right now it's easy. I can talk about it. I'm on television. I just got a $100 million contract. But just like with everything else with the Democrats, it's all smoke and mirrors. But it's enough to cause some of these people to take notice and start salivating that they might have their new savior.
To come down to me, it is something I would consider. Yes, I would. Because I don't mind the thought of tussling with these folks at all, on the left or the right. All of them disgust me, to be quite honest with you.
So earlier today, I spoke to Mark Mitchell. And Mark from Rasmussen had some information about this. So listen to this because it's kind of interesting.
This is one of my favorite polls. We just polled on Stephen A. Smith, and it was stunning. And I did it for Pablo Torres. Find out it's sponsored, so you can go to RasmussenReports.com. Everybody watching this can download it for free. We asked a whole bunch of questions there. So we did primaries and general head-to-heads. And Stephen A. Smith, keep in mind, people like him because he's an entertainer, but a lot of people don't know him. So from a favorability rating, 45% said not sure. They just don't know who this guy is at all. And because Americans are agreeable, they don't say I have an unfavorable opinion if they don't know him. He was very positive, like net 13, I think it was, like really high favorability. But he, like, essentially an enigma. People like really didn't know who he was. In a Democrat primary, he trails Kamala Harris by only 21 points, and he only trails Gavin Newsom by 3 and AOC by 4. And so she has one of the biggest social influencer footprints of any Democrat. Kamala Harris just had $3 billion in free press. Like, so he does really well. And so that, to me, is signs that Democrat voters are desperate for an outsider because they don't think the party can fix itself. But then in a head-to-head, 38% J.D. Vance, 34% Stephen A. Smith. Now, a whole ton of caveats. It's super far out. It's a lot could happen between now and then. So many people said not sure. It's because they were holding out for another candidate. They'll probably break one way or the other. But the Republicans could easily lose 2028 if they don't do better, in my opinion, of internalizing the MAGA agenda. And as we all know, with the rhinos everywhere, it's a tall order. And then I'll tell you, he's a pretty big, he's not a spoiler, but he gets 11% if he runs as a third party. So maybe he'll pull RFK on the Democrats. I don't know.
What Stephen A. Smith?
Yeah, I find him to be the jester of ESPN. But when you hear those numbers, and Mark is very credible with his numbers, you got to be saying, you got to be kidding me. Are people that gullible? They're gullible because they're looking for something. Anything. Show me somebody who can lead us past this MAGA stuff. And so they're looking all over the place and being shown false idols. And constantly, again, as I said earlier, and I hope it didn't offend anybody, but they're having mental masturbation. They're fantasizing. Oh my God, somebody's got to beat J.D. Vance. Anyone. Trump can't do it yet. Because they got nothing. And Stephen A. Smith, the opportunist, the marketer that he is, realizes, oh, this is going to be easy. This is going to be a gravy train for me. I don't even have to fill out any papers. I can just pretend that the illusion is out there that I could run for president. And because of that, I'm good. Hey, people are calling me. All these people are calling me. Networks, I'm going to be on TV. My personal brand is going to rise. I am going to get the visibility that Mark Mitchell just said he doesn't have. He has it in the sports world. And now it's going to be given to him. You watch. He'll be on CNN. He'll be on MSNBC. He's already all over Fox with Sean Hannity. What does that do for you? It elevates your brand for free. I'm telling you right now, if I ever got on Fox or television, what that does for you is more people are going to subscribe to his channel. More people are going to watch his videos. More people are going to watch ESPN. It all spells cash. That's cash money right there. Just count it. He knows this. He's playing these people. He's playing them for all it's worth. He's never going to run. Never. Never. Not from people who know him. Not from people who've seen him will this guy run. Because he's never done anything. Yes, he's a great commentator. Some people think he's a great commentator. He gets ratings. What's he done? Jason Whitlock.
Is doing, and people are going to take Stephen A. Smith seriously as a presidential candidate, and he may win the Democratic nomination, and he may win the presidency, because we haven't fixed what's wrong with America. Our eyes are open, and many of us are demanding change, but the change hasn't happened yet, and I'm not sure if it's going to happen. And for Stephen A. Smith to be running out there and admitting, yeah, I think I want to run for president, is an indication that the people controlling him say, no, there's no real change. We'll be back to business. And people are like, how's he? Kamala Harris got away with it. An illegitimate nominee for the Democratic Party. They run out Biden, install her. She never has to compete in the primary. She never has to earn the right to be the Democratic nominee. She never had to answer any real questions. She never had to prove any level of competency. And they ran her for president. And yes, Trump won all the swing states. But she came within 4 or 5 million votes of beating him in the popular vote. And if they were able to cheat just a little bit better, she would have won the presidency. If they feel like, man, we got Kamala Harris this close, we got Joe Biden across the finish line, Stephen A., that's easy work.
So, Barry, why are you showing this? Because it's on you to make sure that doesn't happen. It's on you to smoke this out early. Start laying the traps in the leaves here. Don't let Democrats come up with another head of steam to put somebody else out there, just like Joe and Kamala, who've got nothing behind them. Can he win? Hell yes, he can win. How can he win? We just saw them put up a dementia patient. We just saw them put up a cackling fool. And the one thing that Stephen A. Smith has that neither of them, neither Biden nor Kamala has, is his ability to get on stage, make a fool of himself, entertain, and be funny, and talk. He's not going to drool like Joe Biden. He's not going to look stupid like Kamala. So don't take this and say, there's no way to, oh yeah, we just saw it almost happen. The media will coalesce behind whoever has a D behind their name. They don't care. They will give him so much publicity. So much publicity. Don't take it for granted that this clown would never win. Jason had some more to say.
I mean, seriously, Stephen A. Smith works at ESPN. He's an employee. It's not like he's run some major company and had 100 people that are direct reports to him, or that he oversees a bunch of people that have direct reports to them. He sits on TV and talks about sports. And now he's flirting with the idea of being president of the United States. This is, I want to show you the disconnect. And if you don't get the reference, I was talking about Douglas Murray. He had that interview or that debate with Dave Smith, the comedian, on Joe Rogan's podcast. And he just kept beating up Dave Smith on the point of like, hey, you have no right to have an opinion on what's going on in American foreign policy because you haven't been to this place or that place. And that argument made no sense. But if someone says, hey, I want to fly this plane, and there's going to be 200 passengers on this plane, you then have a right, and it's just natural to say, have you ever flown a plane before? Have you prepared yourself to fly a plane? Those are legitimate, obvious questions. And I don't understand why people are calling themselves journalists and they keep interviewing Stephen A. Smith without ever saying, like, hey, what are your qualifications?
You see right there, Jason, he's talking, but he's answering his own question, and that's why you need to be prepared. The mere fact that the media can bring this guy on a Sunday morning talk show on ABC, on a major network, and talk to him as if he's a legitimate candidate, they are in essence legitimizing him. Oh, Stephen A. Smith might run for president. Oh, he was on ABC. Did you see him? Yeah, he was talking to George Papadopoulos or somebody over there, and they were talking to him, like he's a presidential candidate. Oh, he's on Sean Hannity all the time now. Oh, he's on Chris Cuomo's show. Oh, Stephen, yeah, I see him all the time. That's how they do it. So don't for an instant think that because he hasn't flown a plane that he can't get behind the wheel in the cockpit. They will stick him in there like a blow-up dummy. They don't care. At this point, we should be ready. If they're willing to put AOC as a presidential candidate, if they're willing to talk about Jasmine Crockett as a presidential candidate, why not Stephen A. Smith? Because they don't need a body. They just need a carcass, somebody who's breathing, barely breathing, and they'll take care of all the rest. Sign here. Do this. Don't do that. Kiss that baby. I am not thinking that he can't win. I just think he won't run. I don't think he would do that. I think he's using this. This is a parlay for his next contract. Can you imagine if in the next 4 years he's raised his profile to where he is a household name? Many of you in here, who's Stephen A. Smith? All right, so imagine 3 years down the road, he's a household name. Everybody knows him, and he goes to MSNBC and not MSNBC. I'm sorry, ESPN. Hey, it's time for renewal. What's it going to cost us? $200 million. I'm Stephen A. Smith. Or he says, no, I'm not going to do that. I'm going to step into Rachel Maddow's shoes, and I'm going to be the next big anchor. Pay me $40 million. And now I don't have to do a daily show on ESPN and go to fly around and do all these doggone football games. I'm telling you, I'm thinking like if I'm him, I do 2 shows here. Right, so I can understand. He's like, number one, I'm in flipping Bristol, Connecticut, doing these shows. And I'm talking to people about football, and then blah, blah, blah. And I'm doing this. I'm doing it 5 days a week. Okay, making good money. Now imagine you're like Rachel Maddow, and you get 1 show a week in New York, and you get paid $40 million a year to do it. That's one hell of an elevation.
Being president, you want to grab the steering wheel. Have you ever driven a car? Could we at least, that's a fundamental basic question. And I get that later in the interview, Stephen A. will make a passing statement about, hey, someone better qualified than me, and I'm only doing this because people are asking me. I'm only doing this because Donald Trump is so bad and Democratic leadership is so bad. Nah, none of that justifies being completely unqualified, completely unprepared, and saying, I want to fly the plane.
Except if the people whose plane it is let you do it. And that's where we are with the Democrat Party. The Democrat Party doesn't care whether you crash and burn. They don't care. Just beat the Republicans. If you end up crashing the plane, we'll put somebody else in. At least win. If you saw it. See, the one thing that legitimizes Stephen A. Smith is Joe Biden. Everything you saw with the 2020 election and that guy should legitimize Stephen A. Smith or AOC or Jasmine Crockett. We can't let our guards down for an instant. We can't sit here in the chat and go, that could never happen. No way, Barry. That could not. What happened in 2020? And they were this close from happening again. Remember, if he doesn't go up in that debate against Trump and go, if he doesn't just completely blow it, there's a good chance they could have pushed him over the line again. They didn't have enough time with Kamala. They spent $1 billion in a month or two trying to get her over the line. She got within 4 or 5 points. Now, understand, Joe Biden, if he didn't flub that debate, they were going to push him as far as they possibly could, and he can't even spell his name. They didn't care if he died. Okay, we just put Kamala in at that point. So don't for an instant think to yourself, hey, there's no way he can't win. Because there is a way he can, well, put it this way. He doesn't have to win. He can get installed. That's how we have to start looking at Democrat candidates from now on. Not whether they can win an election. Can they get installed? Is there going to be enough of the machine available to help them get where they want to get to? That's what keeps me up at night going, yeah, this is great, but understand everything Trump's been doing has been executive order. Congress hasn't done, they haven't codified anything. It all goes away with somebody else. So the only way America is made great and stays great is if we keep winning. And J.D. Vance, who is waiting in the wings, I think would be fantastic, but we need to get him there, and it's not going to be easy. Just remember that. Don't want to scare people here, but Barry's right. We can never let the Democrats have power again or kiss the country goodbye. They're learning. They're learning from their lessons. They realize at this point what they need to do to fix it. Biden was installed. So even though Stephen A. Smith is a younger, more vibrant guy than Joe Biden is, nonetheless, there's certain people who don't mind being controlled. See, I don't know him enough to say, would he be, step and fetch it and just do what they say? I personally don't think he would do it. I think they got the wrong guy if they think they're going to pull strings and make him dance. But there's somebody out there that will. Well, AOC, there is somebody out there who definitely will. All right, so mea culpa, I'm sorry, I didn't get the page up today for the new t-shirts. I'll be working on that tomorrow. What do I got tomorrow? Let me just tell you. Who do I have tomorrow? I think we got some good ones tomorrow. Hold on. Ashley sent me tomorrow's schedule. And tomorrow is Tuesday, the 15th. All right, so I've got an interview with Tim Burchett. I'm going to be recording that, but I'll be playing that at the 12 o'clock show. Tomorrow's Tuesday. More than likely, Caroline Leavitt will do a press conference at 1 or so. So if I go live at 12, I can then go ahead and play the Tim Burchett interview, and that'll lead us into 1 o'clock. And then tomorrow night, I have an interview with... some of you guys may remember a guy named Rick Sanchez. He used to be an anchor down here in South Florida. Then he went to CNN, and he was there for a while. So we're going to talk to Rick Sanchez, get some inner ideas as to what in the hell is going on with CNN and MSNBC and some of these crazy networks. So tomorrow should be a very, very big day. Lots of stuff to talk about, and I'm going to somehow make sure I get this thing done so I can start giving stuff away. Take a listen. Hey, if you'd like to join 15,000 plus fellow patriots on X in our private X/Twitter group, go to fanfareshop.org/group. Just put in that URL in your browser. It'll take you right to our private group on X. Love to see you there. Let's share some content. And by the way, our X group that many of you are in is actually over 16,000. I think it's like 16,200. So that I'm really happy how that has grown. I know X has some problems once in a while with logging in, trying to refresh. Trust me, it's a pain in the butt when I'm trying to, put up content so you guys can see it. But it is better than, I feel better than a YouTube membership site. All right, so let me address these super chats here. Am I at the top? Yeah, I'm at the top. Okay, here we go. Fazul, blessed Holy Week to you. He knew, but went anyway for us. The Son of the Father, toughest guy I know. Brings tears in my eyes. I'm telling you, go see the movie King of Kings. I was thoroughly impressed. Just another knucklehead, DJT. CNN hates his country. Yeah, he got under their skin with that one, too. Jeff26, nobody knows that YouTube's Nick Shirley was standing in the Oval Office with Trump and Bukele. Nick Shirley? No, I didn't notice that either. Mr. Mike, Bear, we know the globalists want to see America go down because they're infected with the socialism and Marxism ideology, but do you think other countries like China are funding these groups? Wouldn't put it past China, but at the same token, this is something I've always thought. Since China owns so much land here, since China has been funding so many things, since China, we owe so much debt to them, it's sort of like the old mafia thing. Is you may go break somebody's legs, you may, break an arm because they owe you money, but you don't kill that person because otherwise you never get paid back. So unless it was going to become China East, I'm not really sure it's in China's best interest to see America go away. Mary Kellens, Chris Van Hollen sent a letter to the president of El Salvador to meet with him to bring him. I saw that, and how stupid was that? Because Chris Van Hollen is the senator representative from Maryland, and he sent the letter to the President Bukele, and then at the same time that was happening, Rachel Marin's killer got convicted. It didn't say nothing about that. CR, the Democrat lefties are just bonkers. I can't understand these people. Kathleen, love your logical thoughts as you address issues. Thank you very much. Buddy Sanders, they look well fed to me. America Ramirez, that is not true. I have friends from Salvador. Trust me, they love their president and everything he has done. Yeah, he's very, very, very popular down there. RF One Games. Any way you can ask someone we are going to be taking our land back from China, I would love to see that. Love to see that happen. Max Body. Barry, I did watch Stephen Miller on Right Side. They did show the reporters not in goodwill, but they must have got their brain cells on a Super Tuesday yellow sticker 50. I'm going to have to find it. It might be worth showing it again just if I can see their faces. America Ramirez again, also with the IRS because the taxes are different. Redeemed Patriot. The party that accuses whimsically is now the party that is accused factually. Bingo. Delane, thank you. Sheila Marie. Barry, please put this to rest. Trump wants to plan and build his presidential library, his legacy, and see it built before he dies. This should be the end of this troll started by a meme repeat. I must have missed a troll. And Britt, Trump legacy has to keep going for at least the next 8 years. Not sure he'll run, but yeah, I can still see the legacy going forward. Tania, we need to cherish Trump as president while we have him. Agreed. Tilly, I still feel like this. The man in the sky is so sad our country has turned to this sad face. Yeah, don't be sad, especially not this week. Don't be sad. He is risen. He is risen. So let's just absorb that right now. All right, so I'm going to get out of here, go have dinner with the wife. She's still up, so hopefully before she goes to bed. I'll talk to you guys, I guess, about tomorrow around noon. We'll see when I wake up, and I'll see what Caroline's schedule is, and we can figure out what we're going to do. Thanks, you guys, for tuning in.